Hope you got the pencil and paper out because it's back to O.P.S, the Onion Pokemon School, and this week it's all about comparing and contrasting DS Wi-Fi versus the rise of the simulators. Sounds like a terrible budget film. Anyway, to start off with the disclaimer, as always, the views present in this presentation that has turned into a video on my own and they're based upon my expertise and knowledge. Your opinions may vary, and that's well and good. We like variety with our Pokemon skills, and if you've got anything that's different to what I'm saying or stuff you want to add, please do put it in the comments because I read every single one of the 2 comments I usually get. Satire there. So first of all, let's detail what the 2 major battling options are, and we'll start with Wi-Fi. It has come a very long way since getting your mates round to your house and you're on Game Boy Colors and you have to have them pointed next to the window, and you still can't really see the screen properly, and because of the link cables you have to sit about a metre apart, which isn't far enough to be away from someone's personal space, and it was all a bit of a faff. Now though, you could pretty much have someone playing their DS on the moon and you could get a good connection, well I say good, acceptable connection, so that you could initiate in a Wi-Fi battle. There are pros and there are cons to the DS Wi-Fi system. First things first, being on the DS, being designed by people that actually made the game, better game animation and sounds come as default. It looks a lot better and people try and immerse themselves in the fact that the game looks a lot better. The second factor is that there is pride in raising the Pokemon. This is not always the case. If I had had to do this presentation half a decade ago, I could have said that probably about 90% of the people that do Wi-Fi battles online raise their Pokemon legitimately. That isn't the case anymore. PokeSav, which I actually have done a tutorial to in the past myself, PokeGen and all the other generate your Pokemon for you methods of designing Pokemon have sort of rendered that mute. Although it has to be said, I find raising Pokemon rather therapeutic, so if I get time I still do that. Most people however don't share my enthusiasm for grinding. The third factor is that it's the real version, quote unquote. I mentioned immersion with the first point, and people genuinely do like playing the DS game more than the simulators by and large. They are physically pretty much the same thing. If anything, using a mouse is more preferable to using buttons or a stylus, but people like to vindicate themselves that they have the real version and thus it has to be a better alternative. There are cons however, and the key con is disconnection problems. This has become more of a problem since the Dream World came into existence, where both the DS Wi-Fi battles and the Dream World work from the same server units, and when they become overused, disconnections become commonplace. It has got better over the last year or so, but it still isn't ideally impressive. I am not the person to come to for lots of DS Wi-Fi battles, but I did ask many of my friends that are very much involved, and they do confirm to me still that there are connection issues from time to time. The second con is to do with people attempting to cheat, and in randomly generated DS Wi-Fi battles this isn't a huge issue. When it comes to battling your quote unquote friends though, this becomes a big issue. I recall in the times of Pokemon clans this was an enormous problem, because people would cheat and put 252 EVs in all of their stats in order to make their Pokemon more impressive. They then fell flat on their face when we used to ask them, so can we see your team now? The third issue is that battles can take an incredible amount of time. On Pokemon Online, for example, which is a simulator, you click your move and it is done within 2 seconds because the amount of animation is very limited. When you're playing DS Wi-Fi, you can spend a few minutes picking your move, and then your mate who's battling might still be wondering what to do, and the turn itself takes a couple of minutes. So you can spend over 5 minutes per turn, and then you can end up PP stalling, and it can go on for bloody hours. I've had a battle on DS Wi-Fi that has gone on for 4 hours. I've had a battle on Pokemon Battle Revolution that took 2.5, so it isn't the only alternative if you enjoy your really long and pointlessly stupidly long battles. but most people don't like incredibly long battles, and as a result it is very much a con. Fourth con, recording for YouTube DS Wi-Fi battles are not ideal. Even if you have an ace card, which I'm not going to condone ace cards in a video like this, but if you happen to own an ace card and therefore have the game ROM on a cartridge, the process is a pain in the backside. It involves recording the battle, getting it off the Versus recorder, putting it onto a DS emulator on your laptop or PC or whatever the hell you're using, recording it off there, putting it onto a program like Camtasia, zooming, panning into the right screen, cropping out the bit of the screen you don't want, rendering it and then uploading it. It is a very slow process, especially if you're like me and you would have to commentate in there as well. Some people don't, but obviously the majority do, and that is an incredibly tedious process. Now we should move on to the Pokemon simulators, given we've talked about DS Wi-Fi for around about 5 minutes, and these are the big three. Or I should say, these have been the big three that have really pushed emulation on. Pokemon Lab / Shoddy Battle is kind of defunct now, but it really was the veteran of this department. It really was the first emulator that really got competitively minded people involved in battling against one another without needing a DS cartridge. Nowadays, however, it's more about Pokemon Online and Pokemon Showdown. Pokemon Showdown does not even require a download in order to work, it works in browser, and it is currently the program that Smogon choose to have their own server on. It moved from Pokemon Online around about half a year ago. So we're going to go on to the pros of simulation, and there is a wide range of pros, and I'm going to go through them generally now. The first one is that making teams takes a very short amount of time. When you're IV breeding, EV training, blah 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 blah, that can take weeks. Making a team on a simulator like Pokemon Online could take an hour to make an entire team, and it can be really good and be functional immediately, and you can export it as a notepad file like I alluded to last week and have it so everyone can see. You definitely can't do that for the DS. Secondly, because there's less animation, battles go by a lot more quickly. There's also less lag because you're basically running directly off your router connection rather than through a conduit of your DS cartridge. Battles go by a lot more quickly, and you learn a lot more as a result, and you get better at battling as a result because you're getting used to more people, more teams, and all that type of chip. Thirdly, you can always find out who you're battling through the power of usernames, and if you end up battling someone who's really good and they appreciate your skill too, often friendships will occur, and this will help you more to get better at the game, to have friends so you are more motivated to play the game, and it basically makes your community spirit much better towards the game and the people around you. The fourth pro is that recording for YouTube is incredibly easy. Use a screen capture recorder and that is all you need. Camtasia again can provide a screen recorder. There are many other devices you can use, that's the one I use, but recording it is pretty much idiot proof. The fifth factor as well is that you are much less prone to disconnections. You're directly connected through your computer, so there's much less margin for error. And just so you can see there, they're the three icons of the websites I've been talking about. You can probably guess which one is which based upon their insignias. Now we move on to the cons, and there are cons of using simulators. The first one is to do with server freezes. When too many people go on a server for the simulators at the same time, often the game online slows down to a crawl and will often freeze, and you'll often time out because timeouts are definitely involved in simulator play, and this can become a major frustration. One way to get around this is to not go on at the obviously peak times, and remember, most people that go on simulators are from either the USA, Canada or Mexico, all of which are in similar time zone brackets. Secondly, in certain tiers, for example the NU tier on Pokemon Online, which is an area I know very well indeed, you end up battling the same people over and over and over again, because a tier like NU, and it's the case for RU as well, they have very limited interest from many people, so you end up battling the same 3 dudes ad infinitum, and although that's fine for me, some people like more variety than that, and I don't blame them. Thirdly, because it's a more personal experience than DS Wi-Fi, trolling does happen, because everyone has a username, and as a result you can be found out very much easier, and consequently people that are very negative will find you and will cause you problems. Though obviously the way to get around this is to not have a provocative username and not to be just a general dick. That is a very colloquial way of saying have good etiquette online, and generally speaking you'll get good etiquette back towards you. So which is better? Well, there's not just one is not definitively better than the other. If that was the case, everyone would use the same one. But if you're going for fast-paced battles and you don't have to put a lot of effort into it and you just want to pick up and play pretty much, then you go with a simulator. However, if you want a more authentic experience based upon the people that actually made the game, with more visuals, more exciting sound effects, you go for DS Wi-Fi. I hope that's summed it up nice and short and simple and very much time efficient for you. Next time on O.P.S, we're going to be going for breeding, the technicalities behind it. I hope you've enjoyed the lecture, and any comments, any queries, any questions, let me know in the comments. Class dismissed.